Eddie Schwartz is best known for writing such classic hits as Hit Me With Your Best Shot, recorded by Pat Benatar, Don't Shed a Tear by Paul Carrick, and The Doctor by the Doobie Brothers, as well as some 200 songs recorded and performed by artists such as Joe Cocker, Carly Simon, Robert Palmer, Donna Summer, Rascal Flatts, Meatloaf, Lawrence Gowan, Olivia Newton-John. The list goes on. So I'm thrilled to be chatting with Eddie Schwartz this morning. So how's it going, Eddie?
It's going all right, Aaron. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you as well. And wow, what a resume. That's phenomenal. But we'll talk about, your career, I guess, in a bit. But we'll go to right now and the present. So you have a brand new 6-song EP called Film School, which is set to be released November 12th, next month, really soon. So tell me a little bit about that project, Eddie. And from what I understand, it marks a return to songwriting for you.
Yeah. So I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 1997 from Toronto, Canada. I am a U.S. citizen, just so you know. I'm not waiting for any knocks on the door as we speak. I moved out in 97 and I got very much into the Nashville way of writing, which was 2 writing sessions a day, 10 a.m. till 1, then an hour for lunch and then another session. So I would write 10 songs a week. When I was writing before that, and I spent time in New York and LA and Toronto writing, among other places. I mean, I could take a year to write a song. It was, until it was right, I figured the world doesn't need another just okay song. Mm-hmm. So I was thrown into this whole new way of working. And I did that for a number of years. And I got to write with some incredible people, including guys like Gary LaVox in Rascal Flatts and a lot of other great people. But I realized after doing it for a number of years that I didn't really love the songs. And I really didn't feel like I was doing my best work. And it's kind of like in this gig as a songwriter, boy, if you're not doing your best work, then you need to go home. So that's kind of what I did. I mean, I just stopped doing it. I got into advocacy because, there's a lot of issues with copyright these days with streaming revenues and now, in more recent years, generative AI and all that kind of thing. So I got very much involved with that and spent a number of years doing that, including I was elected to 3 terms as the president of an advocacy organization that's based in Paris called the International Council of Music Creators. And that term came to an end. I saw it was coming to an end. You're only allowed to do that for 6 years, and then you have to step down. So I sort of saw that coming, and I thought, I've really got to try to get back into songwriting because that's what I've always done. It's my first love. And I had a lot of encouragement from friends here in Nashville and my family, my wife and my kids. So finally, it was really, really hard. I mean, I just couldn't find my way back to that process that I used before the Nashville. I got so into the Nashville scene. But one day, somehow, miraculously, I kept at it. And then one day I had this idea for the first song on the EP, which is called We Win. And it just kind of, the clouds opened, the sun shone through. And it was really a moment. I have to say it was kind of a revelation. It just went, okay, I think I have something finally that I want to write about. We Win is the name of the song, and it's the first song on the EP. And then the rest of them, some of them were ideas that I had kicking around that I would, stare at them and go, I don't know what to do with this. How do I finish this idea? And once I was able to write We Win and finish it, I was able to come back to the other ones and start, it was a breakthrough, and I was able to work through some of the other ideas I had and finished Outbound Train and Come to This. And I co-wrote a song called Waters Rise with a good friend who has a studio here, Roger Mutno, Haptown Studios here in Nashville. So that's what got me here today.
That's amazing. So you mentioned We Win, and as a music journalist, it's been great to listen to some of your tracks before it's been released. So We Win, I could see why, you can almost sense when you listen to it, how there's definitely passion in it, and the lyrics are just beautiful and on point.
Thank you.
I can see how that became a kind of a eureka moment for you to get back into it. But another track on there called Special Girl. So that was a song that had been recorded by America and Meatloaf years ago. So what made you want to include that and kind of revisit that in a stripped down kind of way?
Yeah, good question. That's the only song that existed before the EP was done. I did that song and it was released in Canada in the mid 80s and did pretty well in Canada. It's always been one of my songs that I've just, you have your favorites, and it was a song that stuck with me, and I always was pretty proud of it. But I listened to it recently, I guess when I was doing, I did some review of my catalog during the time I was trying to get back into writing. And I just listened to Special Girl and thought, God, it sounds so 80s. The version, a lot of synths. There's real guitar, which I played, but very synth kind of based. And I went, I just wonder if this song deserves a more organic approach. Little did I know, since I released Special Girl 2025, which was also on Film School, so many people have come to me and said, "Oh, that's what I love about it. It's so 80s."
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic, but now there's this, as I said, more organic, if you want to call it that, version that's really just based around a vocal and piano and some strings that I worked on with a good friend in Toronto who's a great musician. Lou Pamonti is his name. And so we sat down and he played it on piano and I sang it, and that's the version that's on Film School.
When I first listened to your EP, and specifically We Went, and this isn't to diminish, your voice and your work on these songs, but, based on your resume, and this is probably one of the first times when I've been preparing for an interview and just reading your resume, when I was listening to these songs for the first time, I couldn't help but imagine, someone else singing it. When a couple artists jumped to my mind, like Hozier or Noah Kahan, that they're top of mind. We've seen them like this year, like within the past year. Hozier just really recently, but I couldn't help but imagine them singing that song. And another one, like the Outbound Train, I couldn't help but think about someone like Luke Combs singing that song as well, and I'm really doing that justice. And is that part of the goal with this project, with Film School, Eddie? Like, based on your career and your success with that, is that part of the goal with Film School, for an artist to hear it and maybe take it and make it their own, like other artists have with your songs, almost like an audition? Is that part of the goal, Eddie, with this?
Well, first of all, before I answer your question, Aaron, if you know any of those guys and you want to send
yeah, I'll go put a little nudge.
I'm the publisher, I'm the writer, we can work something out.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I'm really, really lucky. When you list that list of names, I mean, Joe Cocker and Paul Carrick, and these are people who I idolized growing up and still do. And, all of them, and Benatar, obviously, what they did with Hit Me, pretty amazing, her and Neil. But I never really geared what I did towards that. It was kind of, there was a time when you could make a living just as an outside writer, and there were always artists who didn't write songs and were looking for material. And I just kind of fell into it. I always thought of myself as an artist, and, not the rest of the world apparently did not, or whatever, or, to much lesser degree. Although, as I said, I've had some success in Canada and elsewhere. But so it was really just a product of I was so focused on just trying to write songs. I mean, there was the era I grew up in, there were so many amazing songs being put out there all the time. So it was very inspiring. And once I wrote my first song when I was quite young, about 12, 13 years old, I mean, I was addicted. It was just compulsive. So, the idea there was some kind of game plan would be giving me way more credit than I'm due. It just was, this is what I did. People were looking for songs. There was, you could make a living, as you could put a roof over your head and put food on your table, just writing songs. I mean, it was a unique and wonderful time. If I may say, I think the reason a lot of these songs are still so popular today is because, people like me could just wake up every morning and write songs, period. So you could dedicate your life to it. And when you dedicate your life to something, with a little luck and a little elbow grease, you start to get good at it. And so that's my explanation.
We'll stick with the Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I know you've probably told the story dozens of times about when you first heard that song on Yonge Street in Toronto, but I wanted to ask you how that came to be, like how that happened. Obviously you wrote that song. It ended up with Pat, and she turned it into the the hit that it is.
Yeah.
But was there a Eddie Schwartz version of that had been recorded, and somehow she heard that and made it into her own? But what was the process back then? But we're talking like 1980, right?
Yeah, I wrote the song a few years before that, Aaron, in 78. And shortly thereafter, for reasons we don't have to get into, but I did get some attention from some record labels and publishers. And one of those publishers I ended up signing with, they were called ATV. They were English, out of England. They had a little band called the Beatles. So
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, I did a little something. So, I guess thanks to the enormous amounts of money that little band generated, they were looking to sign people, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them. So they took an interest in me, both as a songwriter and as an artist. And I got a deal with them in 78, and it was based on a demo, I had a cassette with 4 or 5, I think 5 songs on it, 5 songs. And the last song was Hit Me With Your Best Shot. They had their main office in the States was in LA. So, and I'd never been to LA. I was totally green behind the gills kind of guy. But they flew me to LA, and I sat down with the president of ATV and the vice president, and they said, we signed you based on the first 4 songs on the tape. The 5th song, that Hit Me With Your Best Shot, that's probably one of the worst songs we've ever heard, if not the worst song we've ever heard. So there's a long story about how I begged, cajoled. They couldn't get rid of me. I think I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. After about 2 months, I just refused to give up on it because obviously I believed in it. And we finally recorded it. And then shortly thereafter, and there was a amount of time before Pat heard it through a guy named Marv Goodman in New York. So I don't know how much detail you want to get into. But in the interim, they did, as a production company, get me into the studio to record my own album. And so Hit Me, to come back to your question, and Hit Me was on that album. So my version, one of my versions, I had a number of them at that point. I had demos, etc. But yeah, it was on that record. And so the first Benatar album came out, I guess, in 78 or 79. And, Pat was kind of bubbling under. She hadn't broken yet. But Chrysalis, the record label, really believed in her. And so ATV, and I can't remember who at the company, came to me one day and said, they really think this Pat Benatar is going to break. And she wants to cut Hit Me With Your Best Shot. So we're going to take it off your record. So that's what happened.
Wow.
So it was either me or Pat. For some crazy reason, they thought Pat had a better shot. And so my version of Hit Me has fallen by the wayside, but it's okay. There was a happy ending to the story.
Absolutely, 100%. So I appreciate you telling that story, Eddie, and going back to some of the stuff that you mentioned, some of your advocacy work in your career with streaming now and with AI shaping the business, as you talked about. You've been very vocal about some of the challenges facing songwriters. So how do we protect the value of that creativity, that human creativity in this new landscape that we see ourselves in? Yeah,
great question, Aaron, and not an easy one to answer, given the enormous weight of the technology that is becoming more of a common thing every day right now. I think it starts with and part of the reason I'm motivated, and I have been motivated to do this work is because so many people speak for us. And by the way, it's not just songwriters, it's artists, their voices, their likeness. I mean, we know about that, and authors of books, and all forms of human creativity are under threat right now from generative AI. Mm-hmm. To come back to what I was saying, there are so many people who claim to speak for us, including some of those people who are involved with streaming and generative AI and large multinational corporations. Oh, we just want to do the best thing for songwriters. So they just forget to consult with and hear the voices of, guess who? The songwriters and the artists and the creative people. So I think that's a big part of my motivation. I just think we should have a place at the table. I love technology. I'm not against technology in the least. I record using computers now. It cost me tens of thousands of dollars, if not even more back in the day. Now I can do most of the recording on a laptop. So that's awesome. And we all, those of us who play around with music know about all the great, digital workstations, and, there's tremendous technology at our disposal now. But when it comes to paying us or having some kind of a sustainable, music ecosystem so that, creators today can do what I was able to do, put a roof over their head and put food on the table, that's so hard now. And we deserve to be at the table and talk about what our vision for a future that is sustainable for people who are creative, for human creativity, for our culture, after all, it's just individual people like you and I at the end of the day create what we call culture. And it's really important. And it's also a very viable business, particularly for the United States. We export more culture, movies, music, you name it, than anywhere else in the world. So I've heard my own music, in Paris, in Tokyo, I mean, all over, we're tremendous net exporters of it, and that has an economic benefit. So, I mean, that's not the most important thing to me. The most important thing is that human creators have a sustainable future going forward. And it is really a challenge now. It's much cheaper, if you're making a movie, for example, that's sort of the low-hanging fruit. If you have a chase scene, to go to one of the Gen AI sites and go, chase scene, enter.
Yeah.
Boom. There's, no cost. I mean, human beings we are a little more expensive. Yeah. Like I said, you have to feed us. We have to put clothes on. We have to have a roof over our head. But at the end of the day, I think that's a worthwhile, obviously. I think that's a worthwhile enterprise.
Absolutely. And I couldn't help but think, going back to the start of our conversation, Eddie, and it's like, appreciate your advocacy work and everybody that's fighting for all that. But I can't help but think of one of the first things you talked about with your new EP, and how you had some time away from songwriting, but you had that moment and that spark to want to not just produce songs, but produce the right song and create the right song and feel great about it. I don't think there's anything with AI that can replicate that human feeling and that eureka moment of, this is the song, this is the right thing to do. That interpretation that only us as humans can do. And artists like yourselves, with your talent, can take those feelings and those thoughts and create something beautiful with it, right? So I think if we keep it as simple as possible, that's something that, I think artists and musicians can always kind of hang on to, right?
Well put, Aaron. I couldn't agree with you more. And the name itself, I think, gives it all away. It's called artificial. Well, both words are important. Artificial, that's an important word. I don't know if everybody's like really into artificial anything, but then artificial intelligence. Well, just to your point, that's not heart. That's not soul. Mm-hmm. That's not, depth of meaning. That's not compassion, love, hate. I mean, artificial intelligence, we're a lot more than just intelligence, and you know what I mean? We're multidimensional. We have a lot going on as living, breathing, flesh and blood, human beings. And artificial intelligence, those are both words that really limit, in my mind, what this thing can do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe it can help in the intelligence department, but as you so eloquently just said, that's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. I think you need to make great art, great music, and etc.
When I see a band or an artist that, even if I've known them or maybe I haven't heard them before, but I always refer to it as like, oh, that sounded like magic. I think that's the beauty of music. There's a certain element of magic in it that maybe it's hard to describe. It's definitely really difficult to put into a prompt on ChatGPT. Tell me how I'm feeling with this, because you can't describe it. You have to not only hear it, you can't quantify it, you can't put it on a top 10 list. You feel it in your gut and your soul, as you mentioned. That's the core of music, I think, and that'll always be there.
Again, I couldn't agree with you more. The point of the exercise for me, I think, and obviously I've kind of devoted my life to doing this for a long time now. I've given it some thought. Is that relationship you have with other human beings? It's just a way of trying to get close to other people at the end of the day, and to do something that is value. Conversation should be something that feels good to both parties, and music is a kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. It's a conversation we have with the artists we love and with the songs we love, and the conversations that are most satisfying are the ones that somehow touch us the most deeply. Those are the best friendships and relationships, and those are very human things, and I think they're the things that keep us all alive on one level or another. So yeah, I don't know that I really need the computer to be part of that. It's a tool, and I think that's the other thing that it's important to keep in mind. When it comes to tools, if you're a carpenter, you want a really good hammer. Mm-hmm. And that's what these things are. They're tools, and that's the place for them. That's the right place for them, and that's why I think advocacy for coming from creative people is important, because this is not the destination. Technology is not the destination. Technology can help us get to where we want to go. And I think that gives it the perspective that it needs to have.
Well, I'll tell you what, Eddie, I appreciate this chat. I feel like we could probably chat for another couple more hours, and some of these topics, and rightfully so, deserve a lot more time. But I appreciate work that you do for your advocacy. And I appreciate you being an artist and a musician and pouring your heart and soul into music, just like this new EP, Film School, that's going to be released next month. So we're looking forward to that. And Eddie, it's been a an absolute pleasure and an honor to chat with you today, and hope to catch up with you again soon.
Aaron, I feel the same way. Thank you for having me on the show. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.